Yo, Lionel Ceccavara here with a fantastic guest in our series, Meeting a Star. The star today is Fernando Habegger. Fernando Habegger is a friend of mine. He moved from Switzerland to Las Vegas in order to play poker and go into the poker industry. He created a training website. He has a YouTube channel with over 60,000 followers, and if you look on his YouTube channel, you see all these thumbnails. Most pictures on the thumbnails, I've done these, and I wanted to do an interview with him because I think he's a very interesting person. He's a young, smart guy. He's 20 years younger than me, but he's 20 times more quick study than me. So, without further talk, let's dive into the interview. Here it is.
Hmm?
All right. Lionel Ceccavara here with a fantastic guest today. This is Fernando aka Jnandez87. How are you and what's going on?
Very good. Thank you very much for having me.
Can you introduce yourself in a few words? What are you doing?
For sure. I'm a professional poker player since 2011 and currently reside in Las Vegas, but I am native Swiss, just like yourself. And we met actually in the poker club, playing cards together a long time ago, actually before I became a professional player. So we go back a good amount of time.
So when did you start? 2011, and when did you decide to become a pro and to create content?
I started playing in 2005, 2006. There was a big boom around what we call nowadays the moneymaker effect, where Chris Moneymaker won the World Series of Poker in Las Vegas, millions of dollars. Basically, he was a nobody who suddenly won a huge amount of money in poker, this sort of new world opening up. That's how I got into poker, specifically online poker. And then a few years later, we met actually in a physical club or in person here in Basel. That was probably around 2008, and I started taking things more serious around that time. By 2010, I was pretty sure I want to go full time, and then finally by January 2011, so about 15 years ago, I decided to go full time.
So there are different poker games. You started with Hold'em and then you changed to PLO. Can you explain what is the difference, and can you explain why you choose PLO?
Yeah, so most people that got into poker in the last like 10 years or so, they're probably familiar with Texas Hold'em. Actually, way back, like most people, when you talk about poker over the kitchen table, especially in the US, probably are more familiar with five card draw, where you have five cards in your hands and then you sort of draw other cards to improve your holding. And after that, after five card draw, the world with the moneymaker effect that was explaining before got introduced to Texas Hold'em, where you have two whole cards. So you have two cards in your hands, and there are five community cards in the middle. And PLO is basically a variation of that, where you also have whole cards, but in this case, you have four whole cards instead of two. And it kind of allows for more possibilities combinatorically. You can say in some ways it increases the complexity of the game. But the reason I got into PLO or Pot Limit Omaha in 2010, around that time, was because it was a game that was less explored. And because poker is a competitive game, you're always trying to gain an edge over your opposition. I just figured that if I start learning about a game that is less explored at that time, I have a bigger advantage of getting good at it early because sort of the masses became better. And then throughout the years, like the last 15 years, PLO became a lot more popular. And that also helped me to sort of get on the train early, helped me to have a good start into being a professional poker player and succeeding in that field.
So do you think it's not only about playing the game, also about branding yourself? And on how many social media platforms are you active, and which one are to you the most important?
I think those two things, especially let's say when I started 10, 15 years ago, personal branding was pretty much not important at all if you're purely a player. And you can probably see, the same thing in many sports. Even when you look into professional athletes, 15, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, most of those individuals focused their attention to just playing the game and becoming as good as possible. Where nowadays, personal branding became so important that even if you're a specialist in one area, for example, poker, or you're a professional soccer player, or basketball player, or even chess player, back in the days, the best players just focused on doing that. Where nowadays, with the attention that social media gets and the benefits that come alongside, a lot of the best players in poker, a lot of the best athletes in the world also have this sort of secondary career, you can almost say, in personal branding. So for me personally, in 2013, I started creating videos on a training site. Then shortly after that, on YouTube, where I basically taught other people how to become successful at poker. And then through that, 2013, 2015, first time on YouTube and Twitch, I started developing a personal brand and creating content. And then through that, sort of the next leg up was to create a company around my coaching. And I created coaching videos in 2018 with the PLO Mastermind, which is my coaching company. And after that, sort of the next step up or leg up was to hire other coaches. And then we went into software development in 2020. But yeah, personal branding basically since 2013. But even nowadays, I would say no one is required to do personal branding. It is completely fine. But the benefits for a lot of the best players in the world are just so massive that you see people like LeBron James or Magnus Carlsen or Ronaldo even have massive followings on social media. And you see the same thing in similar ways in the poker industry.
So what is the feeling of having a YouTube channel and then being 22 in Basel, being a poker dealer in a club called Other Poker, and years later run a channel and guys like Daniel Negreanu coming up in the channel, following your channel, answering questions in the chat? Do you feel this is like a kind of achievement for you?
Well, I think if you're long enough in an industry, like my personal opinion is like if you're long enough in an industry and you really try hard, like most people can get much further than they think. It's just that who is really going to stay and hammer the same tree for 15 to 20 years? And like most people probably won't. So I mean, in my progression, I had when I started playing poker, I had some ambitious goals. If you would consider a timeline of 3 to 5 years, and I achieved all those goals, but it just happened in 10 to 15 years. So I would say you can go much further, myself included, than I even envisioned myself in the industry. It just takes a lot longer than most people would want it to happen. So I don't really see whatever people perceive my success to be something that is out of the norm or in any way sort of excellent. I just think it's a natural progression from doing the same thing over and over for 10 to 15 years.
So have you had any coaches and do you coach yourself, people, players?
Yeah, I am a big believer in learning from others. And sometimes these coaches come along in a one-on-one consultation way, like you can hire some of the best players, or you could, and sometimes you can't actually. But I always enjoyed learning from others, whether within the same industry or other industries. But there's always a ton to learn, whether you know, watch YouTube videos, buy courses and ways to get better. And the information you're looking for, whatever field you're in, is basically at your fingertips. And I always enjoyed that. And because I enjoy learning a lot, or it's one of the reasons, I suppose, I also enjoy teaching a lot. So the process of learning something new, doing it, implementing it, and then teaching it to others is sort of a loop that I really enjoy. And that also is what got me into doing coaching videos and coaching others in the first place.
So, I mean, I've been following your videos for years. I think sometimes you're not only a poker coach, you're also a kind of life coach. Would you agree to that?
Yeah, I think a lot of the lessons within a lot of if you're in a field and if you're in a competitive field, a lot of the best advice and the best ways to help someone in the same field actually comes not necessarily through technical help. A lot of it is also creating perspective and giving people a broader sense of what really matters. And what photography is probably something that has a lot of technicalities around it. But if someone just wants to get started, a lot of the advice is probably more macro or big picture about maybe you should focus on one thing at a time. Maybe you should go down one rabbit hole. So you give more sort of general advice, and then the next 50 to 100 hours are spent alone, following the advice, and then learning those like intricacies of the rabbit hole that you're going down to. And so guiding people in the right direction or giving them perspective to discover something for themselves, I think is one of the most valuable things you can do in coaching.
So can you explain in a few words what is the PLO Mastermind and what is it all about?
The PLO Mastermind is basically a platform where people learn how to play Pot Limit Omaha, which is my specialty game of choice in poker. And in there we have several coaches, around 7 to 10 coaches that are creating videos, myself included. And we also use a software that helps people to learn the game with a more sort of robust feedback system, similar to chess.com, where you use a computer or a bot to play against. Something similar is what we have in poker or in the PLO Mastermind, where people learn against the machine or learn from the machine. And the best way to become good at poker is to combine those two worlds. So to learn from other humans about what actual human strategies work well, and then to learn from the machine to understand sort of the baseline of like what would be an optimal game plan in sort of the most perfect artificial environment. And by combining those two ideas together, you will become the best player you can be.
So to run this, do you have any employees or freelancers?
Yeah, we work with around 15 people in the company, and they're different. They have different skills. Anything from creating videos. So we have coaches, software developers, website, anything related to administration and finances, and lawyers and contracts, like all the boring stuff in the back end as well, of course. But I would say our most frequent freelancer is a coach or I would say a poker player who also enjoys coaching. And we do have different specialists around the game. So there's not only Pot Limit Omaha, there's also 5-card Pot Limit Omaha, and then there's 6-card Pot Limit Omaha. And you can play poker on different levels. You can play at the lower stakes, again, sort of easier competition for not as much money. At the mid stakes and at the high stakes, we have different coaches for different levels. You can play live in the casino. You can play online. Those are also separate skill sets to a certain degree. So for all those different skill sets, we have different specialists that are hired by the company.
So why did you choose Las Vegas as a new home base?
Well, if you play poker, Las Vegas is a lot more exciting than than Switzerland. In the US, the biggest difference between the US and Europe, I lived in Europe, mostly in Switzerland for 35 years, is that Europe, I guess like the US is, the US really loves competition, it loves competitive sports. The coverage, the media attention, the general attention around the people, around sports and competition is very high. And you can see that in the offering, right? So poker, for example, is a widely socially accepted either recreational thing to do, like a hobby, something to do in your leisure time, or it is also recognized as a competitive sport. And that doesn't really exist as much in Europe, where the whole casino world is very separate to the entertainment industry, where in the US, casino and entertainment and dining and shopping and visiting different places through hotels, it's all intertwined into one big industry. And that makes it a lot easier to have more people wanting to play poker, but also to meet a lot of different people from different walks of life. So if you play in Las Vegas poker, you will come across the widest range of demographics possible. And it is very possible you're going to meet an 18-year-old student. You're going to meet a girl that is like in her mid-20s studying medicine. You can meet business people, small business owners, professional poker players, like people from all walks of life. And I would say in Europe, if you play poker, you will generally meet more so the casino people and not just the general broad audience, which is overall like less pleasurable to play with and spend time with. So that's one of the main reasons I would say I enjoy staying in Las Vegas. And of course, all the big stages, all the big stars, all the big media coverage around poker happens for the most part in the US.
You have a beautiful view on the strip, as I see in the background. Huh? Yeah.
Original from Las Vegas.
So
I am currently in Switzerland, as you can see in the back.
Do you like photography? And if yes, what kind of photography do you appreciate?
Well, with having a social media brand, pictures and images are obviously very important. What I enjoy about videos or pictures is just like how many more people you can reach through media in general. So the ability to create media is really the attempt to scale yourself in many ways. So what that means is if you have a conversation with someone about a certain topic, it's a one-on-one conversation and only this one person can take advantage of it and benefit from it. And likewise, your benefit is you have reached one individual. But by creating something that can be consumed, unlike a one-on-one conversation, by thousands or millions of people, your message, whether it is a message done in a photo shoot or in a picture, an image, something that you paint, a video or a coaching video, whatever it could be, like that message, that piece of art or information or entertainment can be shared by millions of people and watched at different times around the globe. And I think that is an excellent opportunity to scale yourself and your message and what you want to bring out to the world. And the way the big platforms work, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, like all these, like TikTok and whatever, is that you have to abide by the rules if you want to get through and be recommended to a wider audience. And that means you have to sort of combine your skills as a photographer, for example, or someone who records videos, and understand how that benefits the platform you're on so that they can reward you and show you to more people. So it's a very interesting game. It doesn't matter in which media business you're in. If you want to get more attention, you want to stay true to your art on the one side, but you also want to cater towards the platform to reap the benefits and reach more people. And I do enjoy that sort of interlinked game.
So, I mean, poker is a lot about money. What do you think about crypto and the future of crypto?
Well, there are two sides to crypto, I would say. Like one of them is just the upside, purely not based on conviction in general for the longevity. So some people might look at crypto and say, well, there's a lot of upside right now. Maybe I'm going to make some money. It's like any other stock, any other piece of financial instrument that gets attention. And for that, we are currently in pretty hot times. But I think for most people, and that's what's really interesting, crypto represents more so regaining control over your finances. It frees you up, right? So if you look at the highest conviction people in the space, and an analogy they use is in the Matrix movie when Morpheus hands out the red and the blue pill, and he said, and Neo says, like in crypto terms, he's like, oh, if I get the right one, I'm gonna get rich. Meaning if you get into crypto, you're going to get rich. And the answer of Morpheus is no, much better. You're going to get free, right? So I think for a lot of people within crypto that are deep in crypto, it's more about the freedom that it represents and getting things into your own manner, more so than actually becoming financially rich. And I think that's what's appealing because you want to have people that really believe in the movement in order for the assets to go up in value. And I think that's exactly what crypto represents. In more concrete or practical terms, I would say if we have seen several times, if you have maybe the wrong political view, you might not get access to your own money that is in an institution, right? Or if you make a transaction between two individuals, usually what you're doing by not paying in cash is you are basically letting two other entities transact with each other. So you're saying my Visa card is going to transact now with your bank, and we're going to put it up to them and give them the fees for that. But they're in the middle. And by working with crypto, you're basically saying, I'm going to regain control over that transaction, and I'm going to make a transaction with Lionel, and it is just between the two of us, and no one else is part of that transaction, which again reclaims the freedom. And I think that is the true power of crypto.
So we're gonna wrap it up. Just one more question. What are your plans for the future? Would you continue to play as much as you play, or would you like to play maybe a little less? And we're running out of time. Hey, es hat fertig aufgenommen.
Oh,
Weil ich kein Ding mehr habe. Recording.
Recording, it's still recording,
time left,
I think.
it's still recording. Okay, es geht noch 10 Minuten.
Still have, yes, 10 minutes left.
So that was a little bit of Swiss German here. So what are your plans for your future? And do you plan to continue to play as much, or would you like to change something in your daily routine?
Well, as I'm getting older, now I'm almost turning 40, which is in an athlete's way. And this is mind sports though, but don't conflict that. There was an interesting study about League of Legends. I don't play League of Legends, but I do know it is a video game that requires a lot of clicking. Like your mouse movement is very quick, but so is your decision-making frequency, right? You have to make a lot of decisions very quick. And in that study, they figured out why people that rise above the age of 25 become infinitely worse at the game, especially after 30. And it wasn't the reactive speed of their hand mouse movement. It was their cognitive ability to accept a different reality, right? To take in information and say, I'm going to change my mind over what I believed to be true before, and I'm going to change it into a new reality. So basically in mind sports, as you get older, it becomes more and more difficult to learn. Learning means changing your mind, right? And if you look at someone who is 80 years old, for example, we all know this sort of image in front of us. It's the grumpy old grandpa who is like, I'm not going to change my mind on anything anymore. And it is biological. So in poker, if you want to play at the top level, being able to change your mind and keep learning and re-evolving, reinventing yourself is very, very important. And I did a lot of that in my 20s, in my early 30s. Now, as I'm getting older and I turned my hobby into a profession at a young age, I think one of the most beautiful things you can do is to then revert that back into your hobby. So I discovered poker as a hobby. It was a passion. I then turned it into a profession, which in some ways takes away a good amount of the joy of it. Anyone who has done anything that they did as a hobby and turned it into a profession knows what I'm talking about. The professional jiu-jitsu fighter, the professional golf player, or even photographer, they discovered the art in a playful way, and at some point it turned into a business, which is great. It's a blessing to do that for a good amount of your career, but then reverting it back into a hobby, I think, is a beautiful progression even that I'm looking forward to. So nowadays I play less poker. I'm lucky enough to not have to play as much poker as in my grinding days in my 30s and my 20s. And I'm looking forward to continue to do that while exploring new fields such as crypto investing, for example, or running a business, or even running a social media brand.
Okay, Fernando, it was awesome to have you here on the channel. We from the Ceccavara team, which is only me, we wish you all the best for your future, and we're going to put all the links in the description below where you are reachable, about the PLO Mastermind, your Instagram channel, and your YouTube channel. Thank you, sir, for taking part of my show. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.